Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
That's me, Tiberius!
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today, and I'm your host, Tiberius Boy! And as always, looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to a 911 operator and fire officer. Do you have any idea what a 911 director does? Well, neither do I. Let's find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Furey!
Hey, Tiberius, thanks for such an enthusiastic welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem, and thank you for being on the show.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so U.S. is a 911 director. For listeners that have no idea what that means, can you explain it?
Yeah, certainly. Most communities have a 911 center where emergencies are reported, and somebody has to be in charge of that facility, just like a business has a manager. 911 centers have a director that oversees the entire operation.
So, do you oversee the entire 911 center and all the people that work there?
Yeah, that's correct. I like to tell people that while I don't answer any 911 calls, I'm responsible for every 911 call. It's my duty to oversee the folks who answer your phone calls, who dispatch emergencies, and then provide all of the different support services that keep the 911 center running 24 hours a day, every day of the year.
So, how many different jobs are there in a 911 center?
Well, it depends on where you're at, Tiberius. The smaller the community, obviously, probably the fewer jobs that are there. And some communities, people share some jobs, but there's a position called a call taker, which is the person who actually answers the phone and gets things ready to go. Then there's a dispatcher, who is the person who relays that information to the appropriate emergency vehicles to go to your call. The call taker finds out where you are and whether there's a fire or a crime or someone who's hurt. The dispatcher then sends the appropriate resources to that scene. There are typically supervisors and sometimes even assistant supervisors who work on every shift to try to handle big problems or help people through with some decision making. And then you've got all sorts of support personnel. Because you're surrounded by computers, there are people who work on computers, either fixing them or programming and installing them. Because you use radio, there are folks who are radio technicians who make sure that all the radios are maintained, that you stay on the air. There are more technical people who make sure that other items like your generator works, because 911 has to operate during a power failure, even if it lasts for days. You've got those folks. And then you've got the people who work in administration, very much like any company has somebody do payroll, for example, or may work on benefits, or may work on checking people's background during the hiring process. And then certainly we've got many people in 911 who are trainers, who, when people are hired, they're responsible for their initial training. And then throughout the career, everyone in bigger 911 centers especially has ongoing training to bring them up to speed on changes in policy, procedure, or new equipment.
Well, my dad plays a video game where he's a 911 operator, and he takes calls and determines if he needs to send police or fire or even medical staff. So, is that really how it works?
Well, in some places it may be. There are downtimes between some calls, and people may take some different activities, especially if you're working night shift at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. If it's quiet, you might have to find something else to kind of keep yourself busy to stay alert. But the whole 911 system almost operates like a video game, and that you've got a lot of different monitors in front of you, and a lot of things are going on, and you've got a mouse or, typically the same hardware you might use to play a video game at home.
Nice. Now, I've seen a TV where the operators have lots of big monitors with all sorts of stuff on them. What kinds of things are they tracking, and why is it important?
Well, that's a great question, and pretty much, especially because 911 is an emergency service, pretty much everything that's up there that they're tracking is important. But some of the things that I might see is that one monitor may be where they fill out the information from a call they've just taken, and there are all kinds of boxes that you can tab through, and you'll have things like your address or your phone number and your name, or what's on fire, or what the crime is, or who's hurt. So they have a screen for that. You may have another screen that displays all of those things that are going on in your area. In a big city, there may literally be hundreds of emergencies happening at the same time,
It's
and
true.
there's an overview to see all of them. And typically, especially since so many 911 calls come in from wireless telephones, there'll be a monitor that holds a map, and that'll show you where the calls are. And in many cases, it shows what units might be there at that call. And then there'll be another monitor, depending upon what you're doing, that may show all the vehicles or departments that are under your control. And some places you may dispatch police, or you may dispatch fire another day, or EMS. And again, if you're dispatching fire, then all the fire trucks that you have available will be on that one monitor.
Nice. So what's that best part about being a first responder?
Helping people. It really and truly is. You are helping different people with different problems every single day, and that's absolutely the best.
Now here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we are back here talking with Barry Furey. Barry is a director of a 911 communication center. So Barry, we talked about some of the jobs at a 911 center, but what kind of training do you need to work in a 911 center? Like, do you need to go to college?
No, there may be a few centers in the country that require that, but most of them that I'm aware of, a high school diploma or even a GED is sufficient to be hired. Now, different states, different communities may have an age limit, a lower age limit. You may have to be 21 in some communities, and others that doesn't matter. So that's one thing to consider. But in terms of the training for most physicians, such as the call taker or dispatcher, you will come in and you will receive training at that center itself. There'll be a curriculum that you have to pass. And again, the amount and type of training you get depends upon many times the size of a facility. But in addition to what you get in the classroom, you'll be monitored for several months out on the floor by somebody who's helping you take the calls and send the right people, make sure you don't make a mistake. And the other thing that you may have to do as part of training is there are what's known as protocols that are produced by different expert companies that provide a list of standardized questions that you ask if somebody has a fire or a police emergency or a fire emergency. So all that is received during the initial training and again updated ongoing. The technical positions are probably most likely the ones, and the management positions are the ones that you are required to have some background. Obviously, if you're going to
Yeah.
maintain the critical computer infrastructure of 911, you're going to want somebody that knows hardware maintenance, coding, et cetera, et cetera. And the people who are in management are typically, although not always, required to have some degrees in that particular field. But anybody who comes in the door as a call taker or a dispatcher typically receives training by the agency. And again, you're paid while you're being trained. You're considered to be on the job. And so you're paid during the however many weeks or months it takes to complete the training.
Yeah. So this is all exciting and stuff, but let's take a step back here for a minute. Because
Sure.
well, first responders are there because an emergency has happened. Well, this might be a good time to talk about how to act when an emergency happens and how to report it. Like, can you help me out here?
Sure, those are great questions, and I hope you really share them with your audience and your friends. The first thing is you should never call 911 as a prank, but you should never be afraid to call 911 if you think there's a problem, that somebody's hurt, that you smell smoke, that you see what appears to be a crime going on. First of all, don't be afraid to call. Let the public safety first responders go out there and make a determination as to how serious the problem is. Second of all, be prepared to answer questions when you reach 911. Uh, we are going to ask you a whole lot of questions, and many people say, "Wait a minute, why are you answering all this? I just want a police officer to send them right now and hang up the phone." That's probably the worst thing that you could do.
Yeah.
The questions that we ask are there for purpose to determine how serious your problem is, exactly where you are, and who to send in an emergency. And then, you know, past that point, if you hang up at any point, either then or before somebody at 911 answers, the process is almost stopped. You will have to, it's like calling a TV show or calling a a repair person. If the 911 operator does not answer right away, stay on the line. I know people are like, "Oh my God, I want to get help. I want to get help." Stay on the line because you're going to be somebody's going to get to you as quickly as you can. Now, the one thing that I would say to you, if you are calling in a fire, especially if that fire is in your house or threatening your
Yeah.
house, that's the time to get out of your house before you call. Fires can spread so quickly that every second counts. You need to let your parents know, let everybody in the
Yeah.
house know, and get out to a safe or designated meeting place. You should know before the fire, hey, if our house is on fire, where are we all going to meet? And that's to make sure that you all know you're all there, all same place, same time, same process. So that's some of the real big things about what to do
Mhm.
uh, when you have an emergency. The other thing I would tell people to remember, it a lot of people don't think this is true. When you are calling from a cell phone, 911 may or may not know where you are. It is a very inexact science. For example, when you call from your house phone or a house that's in a business or an office, we pretty much know exactly where that phone is because that phone cannot move. The phone company has records of where they installed that phone, and those records go into the 911 database, and that phone's not moving anywhere. It's fastened to the wall through a jack. However,
Yeah.
your cell phone is a mobile phone, and
Yeah.
mobile means you can move. So even though we do get information on cell phones and mobile phones, it's not 100% exact, and there can be several buildings within that area, and so it's important to give all the information that you're asked if you call on the cell phone.
Mhm. So usually adults deal with this stuff, but why is it important for kids to know how to report an emergency and talk with a first responder?
Oh, well, in one of the 911 centers that I managed, we had a program. We started a program that was called I Knew What to Do. And in fact, we honored kids who were 12 and under who did a spectacular job using 911. And you would be surprised how many times that comes into play. Many of them called 911 when they were home alone with their parents, and their parents had a medical emergency. So it's very important to know the number, how to dial, and how to answer all these questions that I was talking about. And there are also situations where kids are home alone. They come home from school. Mom or dad or adult isn't around for maybe an hour or two after they get home, and so you've got those situations too. So it's great for everybody who can learn to use a phone, can learn to report an emergency properly.
Mhm. So, Barry, what's the hardest part about your job?
Oh, the hardest part about the job these days, Tiberius, is the fact that public safety, and particularly 911, is currently very short-handed. So the most difficult thing about the job right now is trying to recruit and retain people and make sure there's enough employees on the job to handle the emergencies that may come up that shift.
So, what's that one thing that you think would make your job easier?
More people, more people. It really would be. There is as all across public safety right now. There's a really difficult shortage of firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and 911 telecommunicators. And so part of that is getting the message out through folks like you to let people know, hey, wait a minute, there's a job out there. Here's what you need to do that job. Kind of a pretty cool job. You help people, and most of the time you don't need a college education to do it. And there are 911 centers all across the country, and they're all hiring. So if you really have an idea that, hey, I'd like to live in Hawaii, or I'd like to live in New York, or you can probably check out, get a job, and move there if you'd like. It's one of the few times where when you're going somewhere, you can be pretty sure that somebody within driving distance of that city is hiring 911 telecommunicators.
So why has this vocation been so much of a passion for you?
I was brought up around it. My grandfather was a police officer. My father was a firefighter. He took me to the firehouse from when I was a kid on up. And in fact, when I was a teenager, I was even allowed to help around the firehouse a little bit, and sometimes at fires, just helping clean up and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it's a way that people can really do good for other people, and I really believe that. I mean, and for even if you are somebody who is, I would say, risk adverse, you don't really want to get out there in the smoke and the fire and the blood and the crashes. Being a telecommunicator allows you to help people without getting out of your seat, and you can help somebody who's 30 miles away without leaving your chair. And that's why, again, if some of your fans have some sort of mobility issues, it's also a profession that they can really get into that help others. If you were in a wheelchair, it's a great place to work. You can do an awful lot of good while you're there.
Now, it says in your bio that you were also a fire officer. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. Well, it means that the fire department has what you would call a paramilitary structure, in that you have firefighters who are essentially soldiers, and then you have officers, and you have some of the same officers as you might in the military, like captain and lieutenant. But then you have training officers and chiefs and assistant chiefs, and a lot of folks who are in charge of planning and trying to make sure that the fireground operation, make sure that everybody is safe. You pay attention to life hazards, to property hazards. So the fire officer is somebody who fills one of those leadership positions.
So that means you're in charge of the firemen, right? Like, do you have to go on TV?
Sometimes you will go on TV to have a press conference. There'll be questions about, sometimes during, let's say, fire safety, fire prevention week, you may go on there to make sort of public safety announcements to tell people how to stay safe from fire, or even how to report emergencies like we talked about here today. Or after a big emergency, you may have to go on TV or radio or anywhere in the press to talk about what happened and how can it be kept from happening again.
What's the largest difference between being a 911 director and a fire officer?
The fact that as a fire officer, you are in the field, and a 911 director is there in the office. You may be hearing what's going on. You're not seeing what's going on. Although with new improvements in 911 and next generation 911, there will be the ability to send pictures and streaming videos along with your 911 call.
So is being a firefighter a lot of physical work? Like, do you have to be able to do all that stuff to be a fire officer?
Yeah. I mean, fire officers come up through the ranks, and even the chief of a big department like Los Angeles or Chicago or New York at some point served time as a firefighter or a junior fire officer. So yeah, there's a lot of physicality involved in firefighting. Uh, However, especially in larger departments, when you become chief, there is much less physicality involved because during the off times when firefighters may be training or doing station maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
etc., the fire chief is busy planning things like budget or where should every fire station be, how many people do we need, and when the fire occurs, the fire chief is there to take the big picture of what we call the 360 size up of the operation. And that's every side of the fire that you can look at what's going on there. So he or she can't be on the hose line or the top of the ladder because every firefighter has a very narrow function on
Mm-hmm.
attention, and that's on what you're trying to do. If you're on the hose line and the fire's over there, you want to be over there to put the water over there. If you're on a search and rescue team, then you need to be in the building at a certain location, just concentrating on that. But the fire chief and the officers have to take a look at the big picture.
Mm-hmm. So what's the most fun part about doing this type of work?
Oh, the fun part? Well, heck, you get to drive fast trucks, you get to blow the siren, you got to go into somebody's house with wet boots and you get to break glass. I mean, how much more fun does it get?
Not much fun.
No,
Not much fun after that. Yeah.
but again, seriously, it is helping people and seeing
Yeah.
the rewards and seeing people who are thankful for what you did. But I do always kind of answer that question the same way because it's all kinds of things you wish you could get away with doing when you were younger, and now you can do them.
Yeah. So what's the craziest thing that's happened while you were doing your passion?
Oh boy. How long is your show, Tiberius? Will be people and emergencies are crazy situations. Um, I think one of the craziest was, and probably one of the less traumatic, was a man wanted to get rid of the weeds on his front lawn, and so he went back in his house and he got a can of gasoline, which he poured all over his front lawn. Now, keep in mind it's about 80 degrees and the sun is out. And when he got out there, he wanted to burn them off. And he realized, I guess, that he didn't have anything to light the gas with. So he went back into the house to find a book of matches. Well, during this whole time, I see your eyes. You know what happens with gasoline when it sits in the sun or it gets warm. Well, when he came out, he lit a match, and luckily he didn't get hurt. But in one smooth wave, it wiped
Bam.
out not only the weeds, yeah, bam,
The
not
whole
only the
yard.
weeds, yeah, his whole yard, exactly. And I just always remember that he was so lucky that he wasn't hurt. But that was one of the craziest things I've seen happen.
It's like, why? It's like,
Well,
why pour gasoline?
if everybody thought why, a lot of public safety people would be out of business. And that's the problem. That a lot of times what causes an emergency is people don't think. Why would you do that? Why would you use a flammable liquid, around an open flame? And I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
So people who don't take safety seriously oftentimes find out why there
Okay,
are
yeah.
warnings on different devices.
So this is kind of like an easy question, but how does this work make the world a better place?
Well, I would like to think that over time, uh, folks in my profession, not me personally, but have saved millions of lives and probably billions of dollars worth of property. And somebody has to be a helper. I mean, that's just part, I think, of being a good person, being a good citizen. I think it's nice not only to do the helping, but to have people realize, there's a number you can call, and there are people who will come out and help. And I think that's what makes the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the first step that every person should do if they want to get started in the first responder industry?
What they should do is probably number one, check the websites of their local agencies. Almost every police, fire, sheriff, EMS agency has a website. So Google those folks who are in your immediate area and see what they're doing. Uh, Again, search for first responder websites. There are many out there that either deal with magazines for first responders or carry a specific uh, interest group that they talk about. I mean, you could even look at manufacturers of fire trucks and see what's new in the fire truck field. The other thing I would say is to email or write again agencies in your area and tell them who you are and what you're interested in, why. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, um, you know, most fire stations are happy when you knock on
Yeah.
the door if they're not busy. And a lot of agencies will conduct a tour, especially for groups. If you just send them an email and say, hey, me and my friends would like to come down and see what the 911 center's like, and see what they say. Since 9/11, some things have changed with some agencies, but most of them are all pretty agreeable to, if they can't provide a tour, they'll at least give you some information that's
Yeah.
very helpful if you're interested in that career.
Okay. What advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and work in this field?
The first is, and you probably hear this from everybody, is to keep a clean criminal record. There is some states, the qualifications for a telecommunicator are often more stringent than even for police officers, and firefighters are required to go into people's houses when they are not there, come into contact with all types of valuables. So obviously, there is a trust, issue in both professions. So, and again, these days, it's something that people don't think about. But when you are being investigated for these positions, your social media history can often be looked at. Uh, and if you are posting some things that are extremely offensive or racist or hateful, um, that can come back to many times disqualify you for any government position, but especially in public safety where you are out interacting with the public either by phone or in person every day.
Wow. So what's the best advice that you've ever received, and who gave you that advice?
Uh, my father, and I can't remember the author of this, but it's basically that we only pass this way once, and to use the opportunity to do as much good as you can while you're here.
Mm-hmm. So what was the very first job that you've ever had? And was there anything you learned from that job that helped you to be a better 911 director?
The very first job I ever had was as a janitor, essentially a groundskeeper, when I was in actually it was in high school. It was a summer job, so technically, that's the first job I've ever had, and it really just taught me how to deal with and interact with people because that's very important, especially in the 911 industry. You've got to interact with people who are not having a nice day when they call you. So you've got to learn that. But I started in the fire department, volunteer fire department, when I was 18, and I started as a telecommunicator when I was 20. So I don't have a really long work history outside of public safety, and again, of course, college was mixed in with all those years. So, I've sort of been a lifelong public safety employee.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills. And we are back here with Officer and 911 Director Barry Furey. Well, Barry, I love asking about how AI can help with people's jobs. And do you think AI can help with emergency services?
Oh, most certainly. I mean, AI and even things like GPT are in the future of almost any industry. Uh, AI for AI, in a sense, even is involved with what we would call phone trees, where you use them like at a bank or something like that to input different information, and or even some chat situations where you're actually interacting with a bot or some other form of AI. And, there will be, at least for the time being, until things get a little more sophisticated than they are, it probably won't deal with handling true emergencies. But number one, it's obviously a valuable tool for training where you can utilize AI essentially to even generate mock 911 calls to people in a controlled environment where it's not really coming in on 911, but it's coming in a classroom where telecommunicators are working. There's that. And there's also on the input side a way to use AI to manage non-emergency calls, because there are some calls
Got
that,
it.
for example, many people will call 911 who have had a minor accident or have had some minor property damage and are really looking to satisfy their insurance company that they have filed a police report that, yeah, this indeed happened. AI is of great value in those types of situations where it can manage non-emergency types of information, freeing up the telecommunicators to handle the real life and death situations.
Now, since you work with so many different first responders, do you think you can find a few that might want to be on my show?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, your dad and I had a very brief conversation about that. But I have been lucky enough to be involved in many professional organizations that have given me contacts, not only through the United States but overseas. So yeah, I'd be certain to provide some folks who would be very happy to talk to you and your audience.
Well, thank you. Well, my dad always tells police officers and military people, "Thank you for your service." Do you get that a lot from people?
Yeah, I do, but and it's nice when I do. But I think most people well, first of all, 911 telecommunicators don't hear that a lot. I'll be the first to say that, and I don't know why, but that's sort of just the way it is. I think most of the wishers are a little different. Now, the folks who get told thank you for your service really are the visible first responders, the folks who are out there in the street, firemen. People see the direct result of their actions. Police, EMS, the same way. Although police don't actually get thanked that much either, because many times people are not happy with the reason they're arriving. But I think perhaps that telecommunicators being behind the phone, they're sort of removed from the action, and so people don't really take time to thank them. And also, firefighters are around after the emergency. The fire's out, the firefighters are around picking things up. People go, "Oh,
Yeah.
great, you did a good job." When the telecommunicator is in contact with the public is only during the initial phases of the emergency. So, I mean, they're there and gone. And one of the stressful things about 911 telecommunicators is that often the pace can be so quick, they don't know the result of the call that they've taken. They've taken the call and they're on to the next call, and somebody else is dealing with the fire or the rescue or whatever's going on. So, yeah, I think the part of that is, again, because they're only talking to people during the emergency, and it's really not time for idle chat, even thank you. That's probably what drives that more than anything.
Well, what's the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change as a person?
Oh, again, how long is this show? The biggest mistake I've ever made. Probably the biggest mistake is sometimes to not be so thorough in my planning. And I certainly have changed much more since then. And the example was we were putting in a new computer-aided dispatch system, and I had a lot of help from our user agencies who essentially lent me personnel to help me with a lot of the critical phases, because we did not have many telecommunicators that we could pull away from the 911 phones to do all these little projects that really needed to be done. And what happened in the midst of this was the outbreak of the Desert Storm campaign and the military actions in the Middle East. And unfortunately for me, most of the personnel that they had lent me were in the military reserve and who are now being lent to the Army and the Navy and the Air Force. So uh, I have learned now not only to plan for backups on all my technical systems, but on any projects, plan backup after backup on personnel who can fill the shoes of someone who might have to step away for a few weeks.
Yes. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Oh, a lot of things. I do have children of my own, and that's a lot of fun. I like photography, like some sports, although I'm aging out of most of those. With fishing and just kind of getting out, music.
Okay.
Pretty much like anybody else. I've got a wide variety of interests, and it
Got
kind of
it.
depends on what mood I'm in.
Okay, so do you play video games? And if you do, what's your favorite one?
Oh, I video games. I really don't play a lot of them.
Not
My
even on your
kids,
phone?
no, not even on my, not even. I'm gonna play boring video games to you, Tiberius, on my phone. Things like solitaire and mahjong and you know.
Those are
Uh,
still considered video games, but we'll
Yeah, they
take it.
are, but they're kind of boring. I mean, back in the day when they first came out, I had the old original Atari games and things like that,
Mm,
like Space Invaders and Frogger and things like that. And Pac Man. That's really dating myself. My kids like Minecraft more than anything. They're all
yeah.
big Minecraft fans, so that's probably what I am exposed to the most would be Minecraft.
Okay. So what's your favorite book to read that you have not written?
Oh, favorite book to read that I have not written. I like really kind of nonfiction more than fiction. I used to be a big fiction fan, but I like reading people's stories or historical events or what things have gone on in the world and why, and if they were kind of bad things, is there anything we could do to try to lessen them happening again, or to just take a look at, you know, biographies or autobiographies, what have famous and not so famous people done. And, of course, unfortunately, I do get mired down in a bunch of technical reading that I have to track changes in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Now can you tell me that one story? You don't remember, this is a kid's show. The one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
Um, I will tell you that as a firefighter and fire officer, um, I have seen a significant amount of tragedy in people's lives. When I was out of high school for about a year and a half, a school bus from our town carrying students, high school students, who I either directly knew or were uh, freshmen, sophomores when I was in school, um, got hit by a freight train, and so I'll just leave it at that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the appropriate word. Um, and I will tell you one thing: it was alternately the best and worst day in my life. The worst day for what I saw, the best day for what it really got me on track, and the recognition that there are no promises out of life. When you are 20, you think you are bulletproof, and you don't realize that your survival is based upon where you decided to stand or sit in a bus on a Friday morning.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, is there anything I should think my listeners should know about you?
I think we've covered a lot of it, and I think this really show shouldn't be about me, but it's about what people out there can
Mm-hmm.
help learn to properly report emergencies and how they may consider a very, very satisfying career in public safety.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have a Facebook or website for my listeners who want to follow you?
I do. You could go to barryfurey.com, BARRYFUREY.com, or you can get me on email, Barry Fury, again, my name, no spaces, no fancy stuff, at yahoo.com.
Okay. So what's that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
One question. Oh, man, I had this and now it's out of my mind. Hang on. The one question that you forgot to ask me. I think the one question might be about where the future and how technology is going to impact public safety.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little bit about AI, but there are a lot of things out there that are becoming more commonplace that have worked themselves into public safety. And there's some things out there that are really still on the drawing board because people hasn't figured out how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Barry, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I certainly can.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thanks so much, Barry, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we're going to do some more multi-step word problems. My dad's always good at finding new problems for me to solve. Today, we're going to talk about saving money. Ooh, everyone likes saving money, don't they? So, Hanson earns money from doing chores. He saved $28 in September, he saved $18 in October, and $29 in November. Then, Hanson spent $48 on a video game. How much money does Hanson have left? Well, first is a robopalm because we do know that video games can be expensive, but I hope he tried the demo first. So, to solve this issue, you first have to figure out, how much he saved over months. And you have to add them together, so 28 plus 18 is 46, and then add the 29, you get 75. So you subtract the cost of the game, which is $48, so 75 minus $48 is $27. So he has $27 left. It's great. So, Barry, do you ever have to go buy your own video games as a kid? I don't really like paying the tax, though.
Tiberius, when I was a kid, there were no video games, so no, I did not have to. But seriously, yeah, I used to buy them, and back then it was game cartridges, and they plugged into some before you had all your Xboxes and PS2s. You had things again like the Atari game console, the Magnavox Odyssey, and you would get cartridges that played, plugged into them, and then it became, for me, games that worked on PCs rather than tablet-based or proprietary type games. So yeah, I've over my life I've had to buy some. Yeah.
So my teacher said that I would use math every day. How do you use math in your work?
Oh, a lot of ways. A lot that you have to do as a manager. Well, number one, you have to keep track of money yourself, and it's not buying video games.
That's true.
It's paying telephone bills because the telephone company actually charges 911 to provide the service. So it's not like it's free. And of course, you've got to pay the electric bill for the 911 center. You've got to pay all your employees. You've got to pay insurance for all those folks. You've got to pay your contractors that fix anything. And then you've got stats. Stats are what drives 911. You have to be able to prove what you're doing. So, how many calls did we take?
A lot.
How long did we spend on that? How long did it take us to answer? How long did it take us to dispatch agencies out there? Percentages. You get to use percentages a lot. Okay, we took more calls this year than last year. Okay, how much percent more? How many percent were fire calls, were police calls, were ambulance calls? So yeah, I mean, math and numbers are a large part of my job.
Well, thank you so much, Barry, for your help with Math Corners.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. Well, the qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. So this week, one of the repair guys came to fix the internet at the office, but the place he needed to go was locked. People in the building were looking around for a key or for someone that could open the door. My dad found out. He told me that I needed my help. He showed me a spot where I could climb up the wall and jump over safely to open the access door from the other side, and he quickly came up with a solution that got everyone their internet back up fast. That was being organized and providing direction to solve the issue as fast as possible. It was also pretty cool that I got to save the day as well, especially using my newly parkour skills that I just learned. So, Barry, did you see or use leadership at all this week?
Yeah, I believe so. In fact, today, prior to this cast, I provided a seminar for other 911 personnel across the country, and it really dealt with reducing stress and trying to manage difficult people that you have to deal with quite frequently in 911. And these people came from basically all over the United States, from the East Coast all the way out to Montana. So it was pretty well received. I shared my experience with other folks. They shared theirs. And I think we all came away with a better understanding how we can make our life more productive and successful.
Okay, well, of all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is the one that you see the most?
Integrity. I think it's the one that means the most to me.
Got it.
If you can't be true to yourself or true to your faith or true to your mission, those are really, to me, just the basic important parts of life. So yeah, the eyes have it as far as I'm concerned.
But we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Yes.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Barry Furey for being on my show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
No problem. It's been such a fun time talking with you today. I think we learned a lot about the world of first responders and all the jobs in that field.
Thank you.
Do you mind giving your social media and website again?
No problem at all. My website, barryfurey.com, BARRYFUREY.com, and you can catch me email, barryfurey@yahoo.com.
Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show, and I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, KINT 98, Soul Radio 24/7, and Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air on my show. And please, you should visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Hey, Barry, are you subscribed yet?
Not yet, but I will be as soon as I get off.
Thanks. Oh, and be sure to see us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.